All right, guidance. So, I guess I'll go ahead and start it off. Guidance.
It is your podcast.
Well, I mean, I have a weird voice.
Maybe it's God's podcast. We'll put it that way.
I think that's a more accurate thing because I haven't picked out any of these topics and I never know what's going to happen.
This is true.
This is true. So
Anyway, guidance.
Guidance. I think about guidance. Well, going back into what you were talking about in terms of capturing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So it guides you. So it's supposed to. Guidance is supposed to be a guide. It is the action of guiding, of leading you somewhere specific. You know. So our GPS, that's guidance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think about what God does, even within this podcast right here. He's guiding us towards something, like He does every week, and we don't know what that is. So therefore, the edification that you as a listener gets is the same edification that we're also getting too. So it's not a thing where we get a bunch of experts in here, to do and say the things, and it's like, no, it's not what's actually going on here. So I want to make sure that we're looking at God. So what do you think that God guides us? Like, because that seems to be a very open-ended question, right? So a lot of people will ask questions like, well, I don't know what the will of God is for my life, or He seems to be guiding me here, and then he did this shift right here. It's like, okay, I thought I was going in this direction, and now I'm going in that direction, and I don't know what the heck, God's doing right now, So what Shamar, what do you think about when you think about God's guidance? Because sometimes it seems to be all over the place, but then again, though, I don't know if that's a matter of God saying, I'm training you here, or you're just being a doofus and not following everything He said to do in that place He guided you to in the first place. Now you gotta go the scenic route, and then you gotta go this route, and then it becomes a 40-year wilderness experience when it's supposed to be just from the mountain to the promised land.
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Except when it's not. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
This is true.
So I see now, after having the discussion on capture, that guidance is let me say that differently. Guidance is the purpose of capture.
Mm-hmm.
So you are supposed to capture something so that you can guide it well, or you're supposed to be captured by something that can guide you well. So I love to tether my thoughts to Scripture. This just keeps me grounded. So I'm going to just fire off 3 one-liners, all in the book of Proverbs, right? So all in the book of wisdoms. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 5, my favorite translation, the English Standard Version. It says, "Let the wise hear and increase in learning, and the one who understands obtain guidance." Chapter 11, verse 14. "Where there is no guidance, a people falls. But in an abundance of counsel, there is safety." Now, in the King James, it says, "Where there is no wisdom, people perish." And in some translations, it says, "and throw off all restraint."
Back to the rebellion thing.
Back to the rebellion thing, right? So this is, when I saw that, I was like, wow, this is directly connected to being captured.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Last one. Proverbs chapter 20, verse 18. "Plans are established by counsel. By wise guidance, wage war." Right? So the guidance itself is the purpose of capture. That's why we are supposed to capture, and that's why we are supposed to be captured.
I've got nothing more to add to that. Go ahead, Zach. This threw you right into the wolves.
Gee, thanks, buddy. No, I have thoughts, so I was prepared.
You're like Scar from Lion King.
No, I'm the uncle everybody does like. Oh man, so many thoughts. This is awesome.
Yeah.
I just keep thinking back to everything, just in what we've talked about in the last 20 minutes. Everything just comes back to discipline and structure. To me, because even what Shamar was saying about, the purpose of capture is for guidance. when I hear that, I think that is mostly to instill and receive discipline.
Yes.
So, and one of the guys that I study a lot, Jocko Willink, he's got a really good podcast. One of the things that he's really adamant about is explaining that discipline is the key to freedom.
Yes.
So, a lot of people are afraid of discipline because they think that, if I have to say they have to go to the gym, if I have to have this discipline to go to the gym at 5 a.m. every morning, they think that they're captured by this routine that they don't like, or, this set of circumstances that they don't see a benefit in or whatever. But in the long run, what that discipline is teaching them is, how to be proactive in their life and get results and to have success. And what that does is that allows them to make choices and have the freedoms in their life they actually want to. When you have a life that's void of structure, I think in that sense you're captured in a negative way. You're captured by distractions, what you talked about with broken focus. Then you're on the spectrum of rebellion and everything else. So once you're void of discipline and structure, and running from capture, then I think that just leads to chaos and distraction and, a plethora of other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could talk on discipline and structure for forever, but I think in a very bare bones kind of sense, that's kind of where that's sitting right now.
Yeah, and I always like the way people talk about, like, I've said that responsibility is freedom. But that's that's in the same way as discipline, though, because you're deciding on what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So then it becomes, so once you take possession of it, once you capture it,
mm-hmm.
then it's yours.
Right.
Then you can go ahead and start telling it what to do.
Correct.
Which goes back to what Shamar was saying first. So to be disciplined, to take responsibility, and that word being broken down, responsibility,
mm-hmm.
it's a training. It's like discipline is a training.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to jump straight into, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and lose 50 pounds. So tomorrow I'm going to deadlift,
Right.
No, it's you work up to it. You start out slow and then you begin to ramp up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what freaks people out about discipline itself, is that they think they had to make these huge, huge changes
mm-hmm.
in an instant.
Right.
And it's like, no, you're not capable. When something's captured, you have to build that thing up to begin to conform it over
mm-hmm.
to the way that you actually need to perform.
Right.
So that's a process right there. It has
mm-hmm.
nothing to do with, where you're going to, like, that'd be the equivalent of putting a seed in the ground, and because you want it to grow faster,
mm-hmm.
you just dumping more water on it. Like,
right.
It's like, I know what'll work, because so if I put a little bit of water on it, it grows. So if I dump 3 buckets of water on it,
mm-hmm. Right.
that's gonna make it grow faster.
Yeah.
Aha.
See, I like that. I like that word you said. Process. Like,
Yes.
everything is a process.
Yep.
But even in the context of discipline and structure, like, you could think of it this way, like in losing 50 pounds, or even like paying off debt. The discipline to maintain a budget so you can pay off debt, that process will teach you a certain number of things for
mm-hmm.
whatever season you're in.
Mm-hmm.
But, even with tie that into capture, you can either be captured by, this debt that you have and not take the responsibility to deal with it,
mm-hmm.
or you can choose to capture it and have the discipline to attack it and then overcome the situation. So you can either capture that situation or let it capture you in that sense. And that only happens through discipline and structure.
Right. And I would say this too. Process is so important. That's the first thing God ever taught us. First thing, before a woman was introduced, the first thing he ever taught us, ever, was process. So what did he do? He didn't just put us in a random place, specifically in the garden, captured our attention, and taught us process, guidance. First thing he ever did.
So if what you guys say is true, then my focus is on men. I feel like I have a men-focused ministry and male development and stuff like that. So let me just start with that. if what you guys say is true, then the freest guy on the planet is the guy who's married to a good woman. Right? The freest person on the planet is the one who has accepted the right responsibility and is disciplined enough to manage it well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm going to put those two together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think statistics bear those out. So statistics say if you go to school, graduate, then get married, and then have children, right, and then are employed and just work consistently from that point forward, that you have successfully pulled yourself out of poverty.
Yep.
Right? That's the formula for middle class wealth.
Yeah.
But all of that involves being captured and being disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
There's no step in that process that doesn't require. So the discipline, the capture of finding a good woman and being caught by her as well, the capture of completing school and acquiring a degree, the capture of starting a job or starting your own business, whichever route you decide to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the capture of growing that business or developing your career, maturing your career, raising a family. Right? All of that requires discipline and capture.
Yep. Yep.
But it also leads to greater wealth, and I would argue greater freedom.
Yeah. Yeah.
Managed well, managed right.
Right.
correct.
Right.
But even in that sense too, all those different processes of finding the right woman
Yep.
and going through school,
Yep, and it is a process.
and say even starting a business, there are certain levels of guidance that are required in those different processes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can go to school, but if you don't take any guidance, you're going to fail.
Amen.
You can have a marriage, but if you don't take any outside guidance or perspective, it's going to fail. Same thing with a business. If you don't take any guidance or perspective, it will never grow and it will fail.
Yep. So really, the choices is that you can either capture the thing, or let it capture you.
Correct.
That is all there is to it. So you've been back to saying that before,
Mm-hmm.
but I really think that when we get down to it, because you can't be, it's about, so even when it comes to the negative parts of being guided, it's like, okay, now that this has captured you, it's going to take you somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So now that, for example, debt has captured you, it is now going to take you to a certain place where you're going to have to work longer in order to get out of that debt.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
Mm-hmm.
So, but when you go ahead and capture the problem, then it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to work this particular job longer, or do this work longer, but I know where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just me spinning my wheels and trying to be like, well, hopefully I'll pay this off or I'll do this. It's like, no, I'm going to pay this off by this time.
Mm-hmm.
By like 1 year, 2 years, whatever it may be, I'm going to pay this off quickly. So I'm not going to put the minimum amount of payment on the debt.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually going to go ahead and do it 3 times over and just go ahead and live on beans and rice for a little while.
Correct.
You know? Huge differences between those two things. So
That's almost like a sequence there too. You know, we started with capture, so like even just in a debt scenario, when there's a bunch of scenarios this would apply, but like
Sure.
let's say it's debt, you have to capture the scenario,
Yep.
right? You have to take the responsibility and the discipline to, you know, get out a game plan, right? You have to accept guidance on what to do with that situation,
Yep.
Mhm.
and then you have to take that situation through a process.
Yep.
Okay.
And absent any one of those, everything falls apart.
Mm.
Correct. Yeah, structure. Yeah.
Which leads us into the next topic, actually, which is destruction.